God's Way. Join me, Pastor Brian Callender, and a special guest each week as we discuss aspects of life and share nuggets with you so that you can be the best person God designed you to be. Join us every Thursday at 6 p.m. on social media as we share and challenge you to be the best that God will have you to be. Grab a friend, sit down and watch and actively participate of what God will do as we share. God bless you. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for being a part of Living Life God's Way. We are excited this week. Again, we have a wonderful Power Pack program with you. I have these two special ladies with me, Pastor Sophie as usual, and Dr. Patricia. It's our honor to have her with us again, but we are excited about what's going to happen this evening. And I'll let Pastor Sophie recap what we spent time looking at last week.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Living Life. It's an absolute pleasure being with you again. And last week, we started talking about relationships and cycles. And of course, when we spoke about relationships, we weren't just speaking about it in terms of a marriage or a boyfriend, girlfriend, courtship relationship, but we were speaking about it in a familial way, among colleagues, among friends. So we were looking at relationships in general. And we started by talking about in each family, in each relationship, there is some level of dysfunction, but we also spoke about in order to change that function, there must be some level of self-awareness, self-growth. It must be our choice and our responsibility. And we also spoke about it is okay if we have toxic behavior. What is not okay is to remain toxic behavior. So the onus on us is to change. And we went in depth into looking at the church and the role of the church in relationships and cycles, and the need for us as the church to be more open, to have these taboo conversations. We talk about the power of boundaries, managing relationships, our view and perception of others must change. So we had quite a vast discussion, and I'm looking forward to this evening discussions. Thank you, Pastor Brian.
Dr. Patricia, welcome again. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you, Pastor Brian. I'm very excited for today's conversation. So thanks for having me back.
Alrighty, thank you as well. As Pastor Sophie would have just shared, she shared lots of information. She's the information lady. She keeps good records. We spoke a lot about the relationships and stuff. And today, as I said, as we were discussing before the program started, we want to talk a bit about red flags. So, ladies, let's talk a bit about the red flags. What are some of the red flags? And and then let's look at how some of the red flags first before we look at how we deal with the red flags. So let's start with you, Dr. Patricia. What are some of the red flags?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many, aren't there? But I mean, there are some that are consistent that show up every single time. And one of them, of course, is going to be controlling behavior. So you're with an individual that is very controlling. Sometimes they want to keep you away from your friends. They want to keep you away from your family. And it's as though you just do things and it's just the two of you all the time. Mm-hmm. Now, that sounds good at the beginning. You think he or she really cares about me. They really must love me. Oh, this is such a wonderful relationship. I've never been in something so lovely because this person just cares about you. But after a while, it starts to get very consuming and very stifling because you can be out with a friend and then there's a phone call asking where you're at and who are you with. I mean, I've had friends that have had exactly that same situation. They've been out with friends and their current partner is actually ringing them up and asking them, where are they? Mm-hmm. And on top of that, when she says, I'm with friends, he asks to speak to the friends. So just to make sure she really is with the friends. And it's not a male friend, but it's her girlfriends. So he actually wants to check up. So this isn't necessarily somebody who's so in love with you that he wants to know where you are and he wants to be with you. That's actually controlling behavior. And I don't know if either you, Pastor Brian, or yourself, Pastor Sophie, have seen relationships where that thing goes on all the time. So controlling behavior is one of the top markers, I would say.
Okay. Pastor Sophie, you want to...
I would say I absolutely agree with Dr. Patricia. My red flag would be pendulum behavior. 1 minute they are perfect, and then the next minute their attitude changes on a dime. It's like these split things. So they can be so sweet and so kind and so loving, and then they go from 0 to 300.
Yes.
In a space of a second. So for me,
yes.
For me, that attitude switch without a plausible, reasonable, logical explanation, that for me is a red flag.
And while you were speaking, I was here trying to work out what would my red flag be.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
But it's very common, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That controlling behavior is so common.
Mm-hmm. So, but what then? Those two that both of you mentioned are very, very important. Or they are very. The thing is, these ones you can't hide at all, and if you are able to hide them, it's very temporary. Sooner or later, it will manifest, and it will manifest with great force. Then, what do we do then, Dr. Patricia? If let's say we're talking about relationship right now, what do you do then? If you find yourself in a situation with someone who calls, "Where are you?" Let me talk to your friends. Exactly. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, you will have to decide if that's the kind of relationship that you want to be in. And as I said at the beginning, the people that I have known personally to be in those relationships, it starts out being very nice because it's so romantic, especially in the early stages. It's very heady, it's very emotional, and everyone's so, together. But it feels good. But after a while, you begin to recognize, does this person trust me? It's not about the love. It's about trust. It's about control. It's about knowing where you're at. It's about domination. So you have to decide, is that the relationship that you want to be in? So that comes down to your own self-esteem, your own level of self-worth. So it always comes back to us, you see, because people can only treat you the way you allow them to treat you. That's the end of the day. I mean, it's like with bullies. They know who to bully. The person who's going to talk back, who's going to have something to say for themselves, the bully doesn't go for that person. They will go for the person that is easy to control and who will give in. It's exactly the same in a controlling relationship. You have to decide, this isn't love. This isn't what love is supposed to be like. I don't want this. So you have to call it a day. I would say call it a day. Pastor Sophie, do you think that's too harsh? Or would you say call it a day?
Pastor, I would say run furthest away, because it makes simple things. And this is a saying that I love. You cannot change what you tolerate. So you tolerate once, twice, then you give the impression that this is an okay behavior that you are willing to act. And I'm not only talking about in a male-female relationships. There are work relationships, there are family relationships that can have types of red flags. The thing about it is, as Dr. Patricia said, it may not be that you see that behavior being displayed on the get-go. It's all wrong and it's all painted as a picture perfect. But then there's those little slip-ups that you see. And because, and I want to speak to women, because women are so emotionally driven, they tend to look at, because we don't have that self-esteem to say, you know what, I can validate myself, I can be happy by myself. So because because we are seeking that, we tend to say, oh, this is all right, I can handle this, not knowing that is a sign of something so much bigger to come.
Thank you.
So
yeah.
all things lead to the big things. And I always say, what you see in front of your eyes is definitely not what you're going to see and I'm talking about in a marriage now, is not what you're going to see in a relationship, in a marriage.
No,
as we say in Trinidad, see me and come live with me is two different things.
Yes, that's so true. So I want to mention another red flag that comes up, and I've come across that with clients, people that I work with, and this is where the individual that they're going out with and is looking serious, sometimes that person has already been married, so they're divorced, or sometimes they've already been in past relationships. And what they will tell you is that their ex, there was the mad person. She was a crazy woman, you know, and it was all her. And really and truly, you need to be on your double lookout for that one. Because that one's quite scary.
Does that go both ways? Does that go both
yes.
ways?
yes. I have to be fair to the men. There are women that are exactly the same. So let's just be real. But when everything was their partner's fault, everything was down to them, or they were the crazy one, be very careful, because that is a person that does not like to be accountable. That is a person that is not self-aware. And so if you want to get in a relationship with this individual, you know, you better be on your P's and Q's, because everything that goes wrong, anything doesn't work, it's all on you. And so, Pastor Sophie, I know that was a big laugh for you. So, I don't know if you've come across that or you've seen it, but the crazy person is always there. The crazy ex, you know, okay, she was crazy.
That's so true, Dr. Patricia, because I hear it all the time. One person always paint the other person as the worst person in the relationship. The other says, "Oh, this person did this." The other says that, and you have this tangle. What concerns me is if you are saying that this person is crazy, it means that you were at some point you were crazy too, because you were with them. Is it fair to assess that?
Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Yes, indeed. Right. But I just get concerned when everything is that person, because we know for a relationship to work, it has to take two. It's give and take. It's a relationship. So everything couldn't possibly have been all on that person. So I would really be on my P's and Q's and, you know, really be careful with that person who's always the other person, you know, because the next time it might be you. They'll be talking about you like that.
Exactly.
You're the crazy one. That's what happens.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So before you jump in here, there's something I want to bring to our attention or point out or ask, and you ladies can respond, and then I'll respond myself as well. Do personalities attract the same personality? Do you know, sometimes we are busy pointing our fingers at other people, but we find ourselves, and I hear this a lot with women. I hear it with men too, but on a bigger scale with women, where I always attracted this kind of man. I don't know what's wrong with me. The same man keeps coming all the time. What does that say, ladies? What does that mean? And of course, both counts as well. But like I said, I more hear females saying it. But how is that? Yeah. Talk to me, ladies.
Pastor Sophie, I'm gonna let you go first on that one.
Well, I think we are attracted to what lies inside ourselves. And that is why when you see certain things, ponder a certain way, because it's something that you yourself can connect with. So it's like looking at like. So if I am broken, I am not going to attract a whole, healed, unique individual. I am going to attract broken, because that is what I look for. I'm looking for a replica of me. So I think a lot of times get into relationships, and I know we stick around this a lot, we don't take the time out to have the difficult conversations. We don't take the time out as well to look at ourselves individually and say, what are the negative traits that I have not dealt with that causes me to attack these types of people? And it doesn't have to be in a relationship alone. It could be among your friends. If you take a step back, the sum total of the 5 persons that you hang out with the most, it is a reflection of who you are. So I think because we see ourselves reflected in somebody, it is always easier to connect there because there is no demand on me to change. There is no demand to step up. There is no demand on me to become better. But when I have friends or when I have colleagues or I'm in a relationship where the person is elevated or at a higher level, they're going to demand that I change. They're going to say, no, this here needs to fix. Not that you're a bad person, but because human beings don't like to be told that or they need to be fixed.
This is deep, Pastor Sophie. This is deep. This is deep. This is deep here.
Because we don't like to be told that. We tend to, as we say, birds of a feather flock together. So that is my question.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good answer there. And it just pulls on so many issues. I mean, those of us that look at quantum physics will talk about everybody's on a different frequency, you know, depends on your vibration. So in the sense of if you are a happy person, you know, you're always the glass is half full, you're positive, you're hopeful, then you're not going to draw to you somebody who is always down in the dumps. You're on a different frequency. You're not really attracted to each other. There's not much in common there. And so when you're drawing to you the same type of person, not that they're the same as you, but there may be an issue in you that needs to be fixed. So, for example, there are women that are always, and it could be a man as well. So let's just say it both ways around. But because I'm a coach and I work with women, I always get it from this side. So
yes.
You have lots of women, or you have women that they meet a man and they think he's great, but he just needs fixing up. You know, he needs a bit of help with this. He needs a bit of help with the other. And so they're going to help him. And so what happens is they're always fixing the person. So that guy, he doesn't have that responsibility anymore. He doesn't need to even be a man in the true sense because she is fixing him. And then the problem is now you're in a relationship where it's kind of mismatched because that woman starts to complain. I always have to do everything. Nothing gets done unless I do it. But the problem is you're drawn to use yourself, this person. Maybe they haven't got their stuff together yet. They're not quite at that level. So you're helping them. But the problem is you are still going to be mismatched because you're training that person, you're conditioning that person that you are in charge of the relationship. It's a very subtle thing, but women do all the time. And then they complain that everything is always on them. Or you have men that have personal problems and the women try to help them. So they're always fixing people. And at the end of the day, you're not here to fix anybody, you know. So you have to ask, why are you doing this? What need is it meeting in you that you think you always have to fix somebody? Are you mirroring what your mum was doing? Are you mirroring what you've seen around you? So sometimes we need to actually prepare ourselves that we don't keep on repairing. I work with a doctor, scientist, Dr. Ryle Sims, and he always says, prepare yourself so you don't have to repair. So as we were saying last week, it comes back to us. So I know it was a bit of a long answer, but I hope you're getting the points that I was making there for Pastor Brian and Sophie.
Yes, I totally am. I am. This is top class information from both of you. You know, because that's one of the things, and you deal with it a lot as a counselor, as a pastor, where you share with people, and as both of you alluded to earlier, you always have the finger pointing thing. Now, let's make it a little broader now. Let's talk a bit about families and friends and those that we are bringing into our space. I'm imagining, Dr. Patricia, that the same thing applies where a friend will always find that you are the fixer-upper of the other people.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, it's exactly the same behavior. It's exactly the same behavior. Sometimes it's our position in the family. Sometimes we're the oldest child. We always have to be responsible. So we're used to looking after everybody, coming up with a plan. And so sometimes we do it in our friendships with our friends as well. We tend to be the go-to person who always gets things done. And that's okay for a while. But then after a while, you can tend to feel a bit put upon because it's always on you. But then you train them that way, and that's how you're behaving. So that's still, as I said, everything still comes down to you as well with that type of behavior.
Can I add to that? Sometimes we take on the role of a rehabilitation center. We to fix something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is not our responsibility to fix things. It is our responsibility to fix things in our lives.
Thank you.
But not the responsibility to fix things in other people's lives. And when you begin to take on the issues and the problems of others, then you would realize that you can't solve everything. You may be able to fix some things, put a band-aid here, or you know, electrical tape here and wrap it around. Actually, it's going to become exposed again. And then it's feel like it's put upon, like the strain is on you. So we have to be mindful, even among friendships and family relationships, what we are putting out, the amount that we are putting out. And if we're constantly putting out, we spoke about it last week. Are we withdrawing more than depositing? So we always in a red zone and always in a red, we're always in the negative. So for me, that is what I would say. We are not rehabilitation centers. Men aren't.
I like that.
I think that is so good. And in fact, when you say that, Pastor Sophie, that sometimes we're not here to fix people, I would say all the time. There's nobody here that is here to fix somebody. That is not your job, you know, because then somebody could have the excuse, oh, well, Pastor Sophie didn't help me, so that's why I'm like this, you know, or my dad didn't help me, that's why I'm like this, or my wife is supposed to help me, that's why I'm like this. You see, people can help you, but at the end of the day, it's on you to do the work. And so it's not for anybody to fix somebody. If I am in my own process of change and personal transformation, personal growth, and I ask you to help me in an area, or can you direct me to, you know, what I should be doing, that's different. But when you're taking it on as a project, then that is you. You know, that is on you. And as Pastor Sophie says, that's not your job. That's not your job.
Yeah, it's also very tedious when you find yourself doing that, because you too will have your own issues and struggles. So when you take on that role, then well, it's also hard for you. And as we continue, I'm digging at you ladies this evening. Your brain, I'm picking your educated brain, both of you.
Okay, it's all good.
No, what happens now when you are? I mean, we have family, so we don't get along with all our family. Sometimes there are issues, there are things that pop up, and so on. How we if we're in a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, we may be able to walk away, Dr. Patricia. But if you're in a marriage, you can't walk away like that. And if it is your brother, you can't just disown your brother. So how then can you manage, you know, a relationship with your brother or your spouse that is struggling for, you know, for good habits, good behavior? You're not seeing any love being reciprocated. How then do you deal with that? No, because you can't walk away so easily.
Right. I mean, that's quite a general question, because in a marriage, there are many issues that will come up.
Right.
And so it would be good to have a specific example. But we have to remember, a marriage is really a workshop. It's really two people coming together to pursue life together. And you're actually helping each other. You're not there to get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not there to pull them down. You're not there to make it more difficult. You're there to support. And so at the end of the day, I feel that because life throws at us sometimes many curveballs, there are trials, there are difficulties, there are challenges. Because you have made that vow, that commitment, ideally you will work on them together. So this is where you need to have somebody who's willing to own their part in the story. You can't have somebody who's saying, I don't need to change, or I don't need any counseling. You need the counseling. You need to change. I mean, you have people that say, I don't need it. You go and talk to pastor. You go to the counselor. I don't need prayer. So it's not helpful if you have one person that is just not coming along. So you need to work together. But having said all of that, when you take it to the issue, as you say, of your brother, like if it's a brother or a sister, I think there it's just about showing support and love without necessarily taking on their problems. I know years ago, I used to feel I had to have the answer. People look up to you, you're Pastor Pat, you're in the ministry, so you have to have the answer. But what I realize now, sometimes we put ourselves in positions that we don't need to be in, and you're not always helping them when you're telling them, okay, you do this and you do the other.
Right.
What is more empowering is for them to figure it out themselves, and you're just there as a support, as an ally along the way. Right. As a life coach, it's not my job to tell my client what to do. It's not my job to give them a goal. It's not my job to tell them how they need to change. But I am there to work them through the process and to support them, because sometimes it's very difficult, particularly if we've gone through personal stuff or difficult issues. Sometimes it's easier just to stay the same. It's just this is how I am. I can't help it. I've always been like this. Sometimes it's easy just to stay. So when somebody commits to change, then the life coach works along with them. And I feel if we can do that, to support people when they want to change, whether it's a family member or not, then I think that's fine. I think we should do it. But just don't cross the boundaries, leave them to be responsible and to make the change and to do the work. I think that's really important, Pastor Brian.
Okay, thank you. Pastor Sophie, you want to jump in there?
Sure. So in connection to what you were saying about...
And Pastor Sophie, all three of us, we can feel free to throw questions back and forth to each other.
Okay. Okay, that's nice.
So what I was thinking about is when it comes to, as Dr. Patricia was saying, a marriage is a different entity because there are so many other factors at play rather than just this particular issue or a particular issue. So in family, this person is always there, and you can't change that dynamic given other circumstances. In those types of relationships, I would say two things. We touched on it last week: managing it and setting boundaries, knowing when to give of yourself and knowing when not to give of yourself. If you're giving 10, we said it before, you're going to end up in a red zone. So I have to know when I need to drop back to giving a 4 or 6 or 7, and I'm just using the scale. So I think we need to manage and set boundaries and not take on the shortcomings or the toxicity or the negativity of the individuals. Let me use family relationships into our own personal space. They may be family, and I just want to say here, I'm not saying that we stop loving them or we stop praying for them or we stop when needed, but there are times that you yourself as an individual have to step back. Remember, it is easier for a negative environment to influence you. So if you have more people in your space that are negative, then guess what? Unless you have the phenomenal mindset then you're going to start to find yourself over time thinking like them, becoming negative, becoming down, depressed, etc. So you have to know that space. And I just want to say this to persons who live in extended families and have close familial relationships: always maintain personal space. Even if your personal space is your bedroom, then maintain that sanctity, that holy shrine, for lack of a better word.
Definitely.
Place, maintain it, because you are an individual, and as an individual, you have you've developed your own likes, your dislikes, your taste, your personality, your character. Let your space, whether it's a 10 by 10 or a 40 by 40, whatever it is, let it define you. Not just your character, but let that space define you. So for me, that is what I would have to say. So Pastor Brian, tell us how you would do your family or your relationships like that.
I think I would start to pull back as well.
Right.
I think for me, I think I had a personality of trying to fix. Dr. Patricia, you mentioned it earlier. I think I had the personality of trying to fix that which was wrong. And I always felt like, as somebody's hurting, I have to be there for them. As somebody's going through this, I have to be there for them. And not realizing that it is very tiring. So when I found myself in that place, then as I matured as a person, and then I started to come to the realization, okay, Brian, you cannot fix everybody. You don't have the answers for everybody. There's sometimes you have to pull back and let people be aware for themselves. So when I started doing that, then I started to look at life holistically, family and so on. And then I said, you know what? It is okay if I have a brother that is I don't have any brothers that's bad behavior. Let me put out there. But
okay.
If I have a brother who was bad behaved, and I would have talked to him, I would have shared with him, I realized, you know what? It is okay you do your thing. Let me pull back, because at the end of the day, Dr. Patricia and Pastor Sophie, we really can't fix people. People have to come to the place where they want to be fixed. And as we say, or the older folk would have said, you could talk to the cows come home. If somebody doesn't want to be fixed, they're not going to be fixed. And you'll be toiling, and still they'll be doing their same thing over and over. So I realized that even when it's family, that there are times when you have to pull yourself away from that environment, so to speak, so that you remain sane as well, because you want to remain sane.
Thank you.
You can find yourself in a place like that where you feel like you're going nuts, and I've seen it over a period of time with persons, where you can. So I for me, Pastor Sophie, in answer to your question, I will pull myself back a bit and allow the process to happen, and allow that person to come to the place where they will seek to do what they need to.
Let me also add, Pastor Brian, that sometimes we could circumvent the process that an individual might have to go through by always in to help every single time. Some individuals may find themselves in a position where, because of their decision making, they keep falling into these pitfalls. And what we do, we go every time, we help them. So we circumvent the process that God has to bring them out of it, to bring them out of it. So we have to be careful in our help, in our helping, that we don't cause more damage to the individual and by extension ourselves, because eventually, as you rightfully said, Pastor Brian, you become tired, you become frustrated, you'll be like, but wait, same thing again, I dealt with this last month, I have to deal with this again. So I think we need to allow persons the opportunity to go through some of the things that they have found themselves in, because life is a very good teacher. Don't you agree, Dr. Patricia?
Thank you. Yeah, so you're so correct. But just a couple of things as Pastor Brian was talking, and yourself, Pastor Sophie, just two things. It's like what you're saying, life itself is a teacher. And one thing that we can do, sometimes we're not that good at it as Christians, because sometimes we feel we just have to take everything. Like somebody has bad behavior, and we feel, oh, well, because I'm a Christian, so I'm just going to put up with it. And, I have to support them. Maybe they're going through a difficult time. But sometimes they actually need to be confronted with their own behavior. They need to be shown what they're doing and be told this is unacceptable. So that way you're actually calling for change, letting them see that there needs to be a change. There's nothing unchristian about that. There's nothing unchristian about challenging bad behavior. And sometimes that is not done. And I just want to make that point, because I had that issue a few months ago, and I told somebody this is completely inappropriate and I won't deal with this. And another individual just said, oh, well, this person's going for a difficult time and etc. And I said, this is a difficult time for everybody. At the end of the day, this is not acceptable, and this is not what I'm going to accept. And so eventually the person apologized. But what I'm saying is, even if I'm having a difficult time at home, Pastor Brian, it doesn't mean I can come and be abusive to everybody and just be rude. And they've all got to put up with it because, things are hard. Everybody's having a tough time right now in the world that we're living in. We're all having to make adjustments. We're all having to look after our emotional and mental welfare. So I think it's very important that we don't feel that people can dump on us. People can throw their stuff on you and you think you have to absorb it. That's not being Christian. I said to somebody once that when they were exhibiting bad behavior in the temple, Jesus went in and he did not ask for a debate. He didn't say to them, oh, when you're finished, if you don't mind, would you please leave the temple? The Bible says he took a whip, okay? He took a whip. So he didn't go in there empty-handed. He was very serious. He told them to get out in no uncertain terms. So Christianity is not about just accepting bad behavior because we're Christians and that's okay. It's not okay. And sometimes we are being abused and we're thinking because we're Christians, we have to turn the other cheek and think that's going to work. It's not going to work. So you have to use the scripture applicably, because wisdom is knowledge rightly applied. And sometimes we have the knowledge and we don't apply it.
Say that again, Dr. Patricia. Say that again.
I'm saying, so wisdom is knowledge rightly applied. You see, so you apply the word appropriately, not just pick a scripture and apply it across the board. It's not always appropriate. So I pointed out that Jesus rebuked them and he did it with strength and he backed himself up. He wasn't weak-kneed. He wasn't somebody who just went through life. No. He was also very serious. So the love of God in us also has standards, it also has boundaries. So we have to know who we are. And then when you were speaking, Pastor Brian, I was thinking many times, I think we all do it, I'm sure I've done it many times in the past, is that we're praying for somebody that's on our heart. It could be a family member, it could be a husband or a wife. It could be a son or a daughter that's gotten into bad company, or they've put on addiction or something. We're really worried about them. And so we're praying to God and we're really asking God to deliver them, to bring them out, etc., etc. And so what happens is we are in that place where we're praying for that person all the time, to a degree that we've become burdened with it. So you see that person and their husband is always on their spirit. Their wife is always on their spirit, or their daughter or their son, whoever it is. And then you have to ask yourself, how are you praying? Because if you're praying, you have to remember that they have a father. And Father God loves them much more than you do. And he knows how to connect with them in a way that they are going to respond much more than you do. So if you have prayed and released it to God, you then need to hold on to your joy. Because what happens is they lose their joy and they become...
In other words, if you are praying, you shouldn't you shouldn't be taking on the stress of the situation or the person.
No, because you're releasing it and you're trusting God that He can do it and that He loves them better than you. And I know it's not an easy thing to do, but when you've had that revelation, but hold on a minute, I'm praying for my husband. Hold on a minute, I'm praying for my son. I'm trusting God. I've had the release. I need to keep my joy, because sometimes I tell you, people will go down to the altar every week for the same prayer and they are nowhere better. They're nowhere moved on. Because they are carrying it. They haven't given it to God. They are carrying it. So I know that's slightly off center, but I do feel that, I do feel that's something that we do quite a lot in the Christian circles. We do it. And it's important that you keep your peace, because He's given you His peace. He's given you His joy.
Yeah.
And you're not living it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Before you jump in, Pastor Sophie, let's just take a break and let our sponsor say hello to us.
Sure.
Go right ahead, Pastor Sophie.
You know, I'm really glad that Dr. Patricia raised that point. And while she was talking, you know, the point came to me, and this is another red flag. Be careful of the excuses people use for their behaviors. So my daddy, my mommy, my friend, my past, you're 50 and we're still talking about my dad, my mommy. And it may sound funny, but that is a form of emotional control, because they know when they say it, it elicits a response from you. They know exactly what. So it's like when you're dating this person, and you know, Dr. Patricia, as women, we're very observant. So we know what to say, how to say it, to get the male to respond a certain way. Well, it applies the same way. So because they know that you are going to respond to this, they come across as needy with no intention of fixing themselves. And so when you have that is a big red flag, not just for a relationship, but it happens a lot in friendships. You may not have physical abuse in friendship, but that emotional and verbal and mental abuse, that stronghold is seen there. So you would hear friends saying, oh, so you got a new best friend. In other words, you can't talk to this new person, or you spend more time talking to this, or you're emotionally connected to this person, and they say things. And another thing that I want to point out too, that is a red flag, is that they ask questions or they put information out there to see what you know. I don't know if you know, we all come across people like that. So, you know, you may have friends in common. So let's just say me, Dr. Patricia and Pastor Brian, we're friends. And so Pastor Brian feels insecure about Dr. Patricia being my friend. So he goes and asks Dr. Patricia something to see what, you know, and there's always this, you're not free to evolve. You're not free to have friends. You're not free to engage in conversations. All of those things are red flags. And those are not things that you can solve for the other person. And could I dare say again, some of us, and I'm talking to the more mature folks now, those of us in our 30s, 40s, 50s, I would still give the younger ones a bly, as we say in Trinidad. You know, give them a little leeway. But at 40 and at 50, you can't use your past as an excuse. Yes, there are things that you may need to work through, but you have to work through, whether it is you need to get professional help, or you need to be a pastor, or you need deliverance, or whatever. The onus is on you. And if I am your friend and I've told you once, twice, 3 times, a fourth and fifth time is not necessary, because you would not have heeded it on the first or second time, because it's not important to you. What is important to you is keeping me bound and trapped to your friendship.
Oh my God. That's a whole lot there, isn't it, Pastor Brian? That's
It
a
is
whole lot.
whole lot.
Yeah, that's a lot there, Pastor Sophie. So much there. So agree. So agree. Because that's also controlling behavior, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's also controlling.
Yeah, and
you know?
yes, and that's quite true. One of the things that I've found is with, for example, with people or we adults, I find we throw some nice, beautiful, pretty parties. Pastor Sophie alluded to it as she said, as she made her point. Where someone you say, oh, why did you do this? And oh, I did this because, and then when the person did that, and then you realize you say something else, you say, but you know that my mother didn't love me, or my husband don't treat me well, and we have these different things because we're at a point where we don't want to change. And I believe that to break the cycles that keeps going is important for us to come to a place where, as an individual, we do. And you said it quite well last week, Dr. Patricia, when you said we have to become self-aware. We have to do a lot of introspection instead of looking outward. I've come to a place where I'm understanding, you know what? It is not about me looking around at persons, but it's about me looking inward to see where I need to make some changes, some major readjustments and so on. Because if we don't, as you said, Pastor, so we'll be 30, we'll be 40, we'll be 50, we'll be 60, we'll be 70, and we'll still be singing the same song, having not come to the place where we know, you see what, you see me, I really need to work on this. God, help me to work on this. I want to be better in this area. So I have now become intentional, Dr. Patricia. I have now become intentional about what I do, how I respond. Because it is the onus is on me. What do you really say about that?
Go ahead, Dr. Patricia.
No, carry on. No, don't let me interrupt you. Go on.
Can I say, and you could comment on this as well, Dr. Patricia and Pastor Brian.
Right.
We have to be careful of not becoming comfortable in our cycles.
Right.
Comfort zones are easy and safe, and I understand that. Because change is scary, change is hard, change is painful. You confront things that lie dormant that you would not have seen. And sometimes when it's pointed out to you, rather than embracing it and embracing the change, we go into our shells and we become, it's a defense mechanism that we do. And I understand because it's hard. But comforting cycles that we live in can actually be more of a detriment to us than that. Do you want to comment on that, Dr. Patricia and then Pastor Brian?
Okay, Pastor Brian, are you going to comment on that, or
ladies first?
No. I was going to say I like the word that Pastor Sophie used, that comfort, because sometimes we can actually be unhappy, but the problem is that we are familiar. We're familiar with that situation. It's like some people have been abused, but then they will say, "Better the devil you know than the one that you don't know." So it's like, I know it's not great, but I know what I'm dealing with. I'm used to it. So sometimes there's a level of acceptance in that dysfunction. And as Sophie said, that comfort with just the way, I hear people say all the time, that's how I always am. I can't help myself. I really don't like that statement, because it's like complete lack of acceptance of I have the ability to change, not recognizing who they are. That's the victim mode. Because when you say the victim, it means it's somebody else. I don't have the power. I'm not empowered, you see. So that comfort point that Pastor Sophie made, it's just so relevant. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yes, definitely. Yes. You can. So there's something that maybe because we were born and shaped in iniquity, so sometimes we can find ourselves adjusting or staying in the place where we shouldn't be. And to change is always a challenge. To
Right.
improve is a challenge. But
Right.
even though that is the case, I still believe that we have to be intentional about being a better person in this life. It is as a child of God, as a human being, you want to be in a place where you are improving all the time. At least make the effort, but don't sit there and sometimes Dr. Patricia and Pastor Sophie, I find that we hang out around people who cannot. I think somebody alluded to this earlier. We hang out around people who cannot lift us. So if you are in a family setting and you can't be lifted by your family, that's a problem. Because if you can't be the person around, you can't say, you know what, you're doing nonsense. You really need to stop. And you're able to take that and say, you know what, you look at yourself and say, they're right, yeah. I really need to work on this. Yeah. We have to come to that place of truth, because if you don't, you remain, and this attitude will continue through your life. It will continue your family life, your work life, your life as a parent, your work, even if you have your own business, it will be the same thing, because you'll find yourself in a place where nobody can tell you anything, and you constantly dismiss others. You go back and do the same thing. So I think that being intentional about your behavior and becoming a better person is absolutely necessary, and being aware of it is good. And not only Dr. Patricia or Pastor Sophie, that you identify yourself, but allow persons that are around you to identify that in you which needs work, so that when they say to you, you're able to objectively look at yourself and say, you know what, okay, this is true, I will work on this.
But you see, Pastor Brian, the problem is, and I'll tell you why. This is why we like people like T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyer, because they are not in our environment. So they don't see our wrong and see our faults, and vice versa. But because we live in a family situation where we could see each other faults, is you can't correct me when you're doing X. Yeah. And so instead of taking it for ourselves, what we do is, you doing worse than me. You do it. So it's easy for us to say, I like to listen to this person. I like to hear X speak, but truth is knocking at our door. But because we don't value and honor and the vessel that it's coming from, and I can even put it in terms of the church, we don't value our pastor, we don't value our leaders, because we see their faults and flaws, rather than saying, you know what, this is a truth that is being released about me that I need to fix. We fail to realize that mentality doesn't just affect our home life. It affects the potential and just takes you off of destiny's path completely. You know, what do you all think about that?
That's so deep, Pastor Sophie. We're almost about to finish the show and you come out with that one. Oh my gosh. What are we meant to do in 2 minutes? That's so good. Oh my gosh. It's just opened up a whole new show, Pastor Brian.
It definitely did.
Wow. There's just such a lot there. I'm not even going to comment on it, because I feel like that's another area that's so much, Pastor Sophie. But I was going to say, that's 100 with what you just said there. But I do want to say, when it comes to the personal change, Pastor Brian, when we come to that self-awareness, when we recognize we need to change, I want to encourage us that we do so in a holistic way, because it's very common. It's our practice, really, as believers, that we put everything in that spiritual box and we try to do everything through prayer. And there's nothing wrong with prayer, and prayer should be our practice. That's our relationship. That's our air. So, I mean, no means putting down the road of prayer. But what I do believe is that we need to take a much more holistic approach, because prayer alone is not going to make the change. Because the amount of praying that we've been doing, seriously, we should all be full of the glory like every day. It should be amazing. So we know that there's something else that's missing. So I believe that we need to be much more holistic and remember that even though we are spirit beings, that we live in a body and we have a mind that comprises our will and our emotions, our imagination, all of our cognitive skills. And we shouldn't ignore all of that just to look at the spirit man, because God has given us all these parts because they're all important. So I would really love us to shine much more of a light and pull it all in context. So we're not overbalanced on the spiritual. Because many of us can quote the scriptures so well, we know them so well, and we can pray so well, but we're having issues walking them out. And it's not necessarily a spiritual problem. There are other areas in our lives that we're just looking over because we think we can pray it away. And that's not how it works. You know, we have that mental side, we have that emotional side. People go against feelings. They think feelings, we don't take a notice of feelings. Listen, God gave us feelings for a reason. Our feelings speak to us. You know, we have a brain that's in our heart as well as in our head. We have more than one brain. So the heart itself speaks. The heart itself knows things that your brain doesn't know. You haven't read it, no one's told you, but in your heart you know. And so our makeup is fearful, and it is wonderful, and it is just very, very what's very special. And I think if we just do the spiritual, that we will be oh so spiritual, but we're still going to be broken because there's parts of us that we're not dealing with. And I think there lies the problem so many times.
Wow.
So that's part of the...
You just opened another whole barrel of oil.
Me and Sophie are on it today.
you guys are on it, definitely.
Yes.
I want what you just said is so true. Because we can, and I find this with a lot of us believers, we know the word so well, but when it comes to the application of it, it's another story. So we can easily find ourselves, we can repeat the scriptures, we can find ourselves almost repeating them backwards. We know where the books are in the Bible and so on, but then we can be out of balance. And what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because then we really have to look at ourselves and see, okay, where am I tilting over? I heard Miles Monroe said something very true in one of his messages, and he said that our bodies are so important. That's why the enemy fights for them, because it gives us power to operate on earth. So if we are so spiritual, then you don't need a body. So you should ask the Lord to fly you away to glory, because you no longer need the earth body. So
indeed,
if we have this earth body, it means that there's great significance to it, and there's a reason that God gave it to us. So I think sometimes as believers we can tilt over the other side. One side is tilting over. You have those who are too spiritual. You have those that are not so spiritual. So you have this off balance, and the balance is what is necessary in order for us to fulfill this calling that we have on earth. Otherwise, God could have left us inside of Him. He didn't have to breathe our breath into us. You know that's so there are brokenness in us, and what I find is sometimes we are so broken that we see the brokenness in others and not the brokenness in ourselves.
Right. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah,
I would agree with that, Pastor Brian. Very good point. We do. It's easier to see other people than it is to turn it the other way around, isn't it? It's so much easier.
Yes. Let's say hello to our sponsors one more time before we go, and then we'll come back and we can do our wrap up. Pastor Sophie, over to you.
So, I mean, today's discussion was phenomenal. It was excellent. And I want to encourage all of those listening, and I will listen thereafter, to share it with someone, because there were lots of truth bombs that was dropped this evening. And just for a recap, we spoke about red flags, we spoke about mirroring behavior, boundaries, we spoke about that victim mentality. Dr. Patricia did that. We spoke about cycles, and I love what she said, that we have to have holistic change. We can't fix one part and think that other parts of us would be fixed. And we found ourselves doing that a lot, trying to present a perfect spiritual side and not realizing that side is fixing that side alone is incomplete. It doesn't complete us. Dare I say as well, I know we're not going to talk about this, but usually when we're choosing a spouse, we only look for spiritual things, and it runs us into problems when there are other parts, forgetting that other parts are involved as well. So this has been a phenomenal discussion, and as Pastor Brian said, we're getting ready to close off. So we're going to turn over to Dr. Patricia. She says her final words, and then on to Pastor Brian. It was a pleasure being here this evening.
It was a great pleasure. I feel as though we covered so much in today's show, but I want to encourage everybody to have a love for yourself and to also recognize your personal boundaries. So if anyone's pushing your boundaries, if not respecting your boundaries, that is a red flag also. We talked about the red flags, and it will start with you having that self-respect to keep those boundaries. So remember boundaries at all times. That will protect you from so much. But thank you, Pastor Brian and Pastor Sophie, for having me on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Patricia. It was indeed our pleasure to have you share, woman of great wisdom and understanding. What I will take away from today is when you said wisdom, that statement is staying with me. You know, how you the application of wisdom, and so it's very important. So I want to say to our viewers, just as Pastor Sophie said, this session has been power packed. There's been so much advice given. There's so much good advice given. You can share it with someone, share it with your friends. You know, there's this, you need this information. You need this. Let me dare say that. You need this information. Those persons in your life need this information. Send them the link, copy it, send it to them, forward them to the page or whatever, but make sure download it for them, send it to them, put it on a CD and give it to them for Christmas, something, but make sure that they get this information. This was too good. And you've gotten it free. You didn't have to pay a cent for it. This is, you know, people go to counselors to get this kind of information. They do, you know, and so the information shared this evening has been totally fantastic. It was my pleasure to be a part of the program. I have you two ladies with us, Pastor Sophie, who's always with us, and of course, Dr. Patricia. It has been an honor having both of you. So much. I want to thank you so much. Thank you. I want to thank you both from the bottom of my heart for being here. And we look forward to being here again on Living Life God's Way. God bless you and have a fantastic evening. Let's hear from our sponsors and then our regular video, and then we are out of here.
Hello. How can we be successful? By living life God's way. Join me, Pastor Brian Callender, and a special guest each week as we discuss aspects of life and share nuggets with you so that you can be the best person God designed you to be. Join us every Thursday at 6 p.m. on social media as we share and challenge you to be the best that God will have you to be. Grab a friend, sit down and watch, and actively participate of what God will do as we share. God bless you.